What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Chamber. And a brand new year of hopefully awesome video games is now upon us. We are neck deep into 2024, almost at the end of January already. God damn, time flies. And there are a ton of video games that have been announced over the year, and hopefully a lot of awesome ones that we don't even know about yet. So I wanted to do a video really quick talking about my top 10 most anticipated video games of 2024. And I gotta be honest, much like the movie year that is ahead of us, the video game year seems kind of scarce because there's so many games that haven't even gotten a release date yet. So there's a number of ones on this list that might not even actually release in 2024. There's a number of games that are probably gonna release this year that are gonna be among my favorites that they haven't even really advertised or announced yet. But I tried to sift through and kind of give a bit of a compilation of all of those and have 10 somewhat varying games that hopefully are among the best experiences that we have over the next year. Coming in at number 10 is going to be Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and previous to last year, this game wouldn't have been anywhere near my top 10. I am not a fan of asymmetrical multiplayer games. I have not really been a fan of any of the horror franchise adaptations because they have all inevitably become these asymmetrical multiplayer games. But last year's Texas Chainsaw Massacre ended up being one of my favorite games of the year and one of the most replayable multiplayer games that I have ever had the joy of experiencing. And so I'm holding out a bit of hope for Killer Clowns that it's going to be more along the lines of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it is very much that asymmetrical style where you have the humans that are trying to escape and survive, and then you have the various clowns that are trying to enslave and kill these humans. But since there's multiple characters, I'm hoping it's going to be very much the same experience as Texas Chainsaw, where you kind of have like a squad working together aesthetic to your gameplay whenever you're playing as the clowns. And each clown will have their own role and their own powers and their own advantages and disadvantages. And that was one of the things that made Texas Chainsaw so much fun for me, is that it wasn't just one singular killer, same gameplay loop every single time. There was different characters with different perks and different skills and different things that specific character had an advantage over the other ones. And so I'm hoping that this is going to be that type of experience. If it ends up being closer to Evil Dead or Friday the 13th, I'm probably not going to be a big fan of it, but fingers crossed. The Killer Clowns is a very fun concept. I'm surprised we haven't gotten like a modern remake of that yet. The movie is very much goofy B-movie fun. If they can bring that fun over to the game, it might be a good time. Number 9 is going to be Rise of the Ronin, and this is from Team Ninja, who I believe did Ninja Gaiden and a number of other games that I have not experienced but have been very acclaimed by fans and critics. So they're a very well-known and well-regarded development company, and this basically looks like their take on having maybe like an RPG version of Ghost of Tsushima. And I, among most of the rest of the world, really enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima. The little bit of gameplay that we've seen here with the combat and the traversal with the grappling hook and the little wingsuit and everything makes it seem like this could actually be a really fun open world style game. So while I don't really know enough about it to say how high it really should be on this list, I wanted to include it because there's enough that they've shown so far that would really get me intrigued and make me buy this day one. And hopefully it's going to be an experience that is somewhere between the very underrated classic of Jade Empire and the very acclaimed Ghost of Tsushima. But time will tell when we finally get to the release. Number 8 is probably the game that has the most potential to disappoint all of us deeply, and that is Skull and Bones. This is a game that has been delayed so many times that a lot of people that were probably initially really excited for it have probably forgotten about it at this point. This is an upcoming Ubisoft game where it's an open world pirate world simulator where you have your character, and it's an RPG style game where you get to build out your pirate, you get to build out your crew, you have your ship, you can have sea battles, you can go and, I assume do side missions on these different little islands and places that you can land on. You probably do a lot of crime, like, a Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption style game, I'm assuming. There's a lot of different options here that could be a really fun, massive open world experience, but anytime you get a game that's delayed so many times, and even to this day we don't really see long gameplay trailers of it. It's just kind of more cinematic trailers that are telling you in text the things that you're going to be able to do. That makes me a little bit weary, otherwise this would be much higher on my list. But I'm going to try to remain optimistic and throw caution to the wind, and maybe Skull and Bones will end up being a game that is well worth the wait. Number 7 is going to be John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, and this is another game that, again, we don't know a ton about it yet. There is a gameplay and cinematic trailer out there. The name John Carpenter is enough to get me highly excited. He's my favorite director of all time. And from what I gather from what I've seen of this, it looks very much like the type of game that you would expect John Carpenter to throw his name on, where it's very zany and gore-filled and stylistic and has like this 80s zombie post-apocalyptic vibe to it. It's supposed to be a co-op shooter, which is very exciting because I feel like the days of like couch co-op or even just co-op single-player campaigns are a dying art, and I very much miss those types of games. So while I'm not expecting this to be like AAA title level of production, this could be a really fun B-movie style game that you could have some fun with your friends that are also big John Carpenter fans. And I'm hoping it's going to be gore-fueled as a son of a bitch. Number 6 is going to be Alone in the Dark. Now, I actually never played the original. This is a remake, and I've always heard a ton of good things about the original and just never got a chance to play it. So that is building most of my intrigue for this, but the fact that they have a pretty interesting cast here, you've got David Harbour as one of the main characters. It looks to be survival horror as well as kind of an investigation style game. Cinematically, it looks really impressive with the character models. I mean, we're getting to a point where they basically can just put the actor in the game at this point. So that's something that's just cool to see, especially if it's an actor that you like, which I do very much like David Harbour. So again, a lot of games on this list I don't know a ton about, but I'm very excited with what we know so far, and if this lives up to what seems to be the legacy of the original, this could be among the best or the best survival horror game of the year. Number 5 is going to be Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I was a big fan of the first Jedi Fallen Order game. I actually didn't care too much for the last one. I feel like I was a bit on an island with that one. But this one, getting away from the Jedi style gameplay and very much leaning into the more Han Solo style where you have a blaster and you traverse on these little speeders, and it's going to dive more into the underground, the underbelly of like the crime world of the Star Wars universe. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun. Star Wars is something that they've all but lost my interest in the movies, but there's still a lot of potential to regain my interest in the video game world because there's just so much more freedom to explore worlds and characters and angles of this universe that they're unfortunately just have no interest in doing big budget movies on. So the fact that it's going to be in the Star Wars universe while not being yet another Jedi game does make me very interested, and hopefully this one delivers on the level of that first Jedi Fallen Order game. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Not the best title in the world, I got to be honest with you. Usually Indiana Jones titles have a little bit more pop, but nonetheless, we've known about this game for a while. Ever since Xbox purchased Bethesda, they talked about they're going to do an Indiana Jones game. They might even released a teaser a year or so ago. I can't remember, but just in the last 2 weeks, they finally actually showed the gameplay and the full cinematic trailer for this game. It's going to be in first person, which disappointed a lot of people, and I understand that. If I was the one making the decision, I would have said go third person because that just seems more interesting for the Indiana Jones experience, but I understand that they don't necessarily want to compare themselves or set themselves up for the comparison to Tomb Raider and even more so Uncharted, which undoubtedly are Indiana Jones ripoffs in and of themselves, but they're fantastic ripoffs. So you don't want an Indiana Jones game to come in and feel like it's ripping off its ripoffs. So doing the first person angle, I do think is going to make this game stand out a bit more and be able to be a very different experience than the Uncharted games and the Tomb Raider games. So far, with what we've seen in the gameplay with the puzzle solving and some of the combat, it looks like it could be interesting. But as an Indiana Jones fan, I mean, that's enough to get me to buy this day one. So hopefully Bethesda knows what they're doing. Hopefully Xbox spent their money well, and Bethesda's going to deliver a lot of great exclusives for them, because me personally, I don't feel like there's a ton of exclusives on Xbox that really merits the purchase of the console, even though I love my Xbox and I always buy them. But Indiana Jones, Great Circle, hopefully it delivers, hopefully it's awesome, hopefully it comes out this year, because it's slated for Q4 2024, which more often than not means Q2 of the following year. But we'll see. It looks like it could be fun. Coming in at number 3 is going to be the Silent Hill 2 Remake. And this is another game that is not officially slated for a release this year, but I have all the hope that it is going to release this year. We've known about it for almost a year now. It doesn't seem like the type of game that would take years of development to where this would get delayed even further, but nonetheless, they could surprise us and be a Q1, Q2 2025 game. But Silent Hill, ever since especially the Resident Evil games have been doing their modernized remakes and just killing it in every single one of them, I've been desperately wanting them to revisit the Silent Hill franchise and modernize and update those games. I'm still a little bit pissed and a little bit bitter that they skipped over the first game, which is in much more of a dire need of a remake than Silent Hill 2, just because they know the second one's the most popular. But hopefully this one succeeds. Hopefully this one is a great remake, and then they will do Silent Hill, the original, here in the next couple of years. I really want to play that game again. But Silent Hill 2, it looks like it could be really interesting. You know, the second game, I unfortunately missed out on. I don't know why. I don't have any excuses for it, especially for as much as I love the first game. I cannot for the life of me tell you why I didn't play the second game. But I did finally play it maybe about 5 years ago on PlayStation Now. It's not exactly the same experience when you play it in modern times versus when it first came out. So I really want to experience this game in a modern context with modern controls and a modern graphical aesthetic, and see if I can finally kind of get the love that Silent Hill 2 has always had. So I'm looking forward to this one. Hopefully we get to play it this year. Number 2 is going to be The Wolf Among Us 2, and yet another game that is not officially slated to come out in 2024, but it feels like it should, because we've known about this game for a few years now, and even more so than Silent Hill 2. It's like, come on guys, you know that we can get this thing out. Let's go. We've waited long enough. It's been a long fucking time since the first game. But I really loved the Telltale games for a long time, you know, especially The Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us. I love the Batman games. Maybe we'll get one of those eventually. But The Wolf Among Us was always my favorite because it was just such a unique take, where you have the fairy tale world, you have all of the kind of lore and the rules of the fairy tale world, but it's kind of pushed through this rated R, gore-filled, seedy underbelly detective story sieve. And it was just a really interesting take, where the big bad wolf is this detective and he's trying to solve this murder. And the first game ended on a nice little cliffhanger. And this second game, I assume, is going to pick up from that and tell an even better story. They've had a lot of time to develop it, and I'm just really excited to get back into this world, get back into these characters, and if it succeeds, hopefully get Telltale back to the state that they were years ago, where it's like every year they were doing a new property, because I want some more Batman games. But number 1, which shouldn't surprise too many people that actually know my taste, and that is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Now, yes, it is a remake. I wish I could put an original title at number 1, but I'd be lying to you if I said that there was any game that I was more excited for and anticipating higher than this remake. I'm a Metal Gear Solid whore. The original game is my favorite video game of all time. Metal Gear Solid 3 is easily the second best in that franchise. Many would call it the best in that franchise, and I can't really argue against that. And much like with Silent Hill 2, I was a bit frustrated and a bit perturbed at the time whenever they announced that they were just going to skip right to 3 and remake that one first instead of the original, which, just like with Silent Hill, the original Metal Gear Solid is the one that desperately needs a modern remake, much more than the third game, which still plays very well and is backwards compatible like on Xbox Series X right now. But I have a sneaking suspicion that they are starting with 3 because they are going to remake and retell this story in chronological order, starting with Naked Snake and going through the Big Boss storyline, and then eventually getting to Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 4. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them retelling the story in a new context and having it make more continuity sense for new people and onboarding people in a way that doesn't alienate them. So if that's the case, I can forgive that much more than Silent Hill 2. The little teaser trailer that we've gotten so far, the graphics look incredible. They've already said that they're basically going to be remaking this one for one, so it's going to be all the same environments, just updated, all the same gameplay with the modern, like, Metal Gear Solid 5 engine, I would assume. They're getting the same voice casting and recordings and everything back, so it's not going to compromise the original. While I am very curious if they're going to tone down any of the weirdness, because Hideo Kojima is very wacky and wild. Part of that's why we love these games. Part of it's that's the part that kind of alienates some people. It's a little bit too sci-fi for them. So I am very curious if anything is going to be changed in this one. But this is a day one release for me, absolutely. Like, it's going to be one where I'm sitting, staring at my PS5 at 11:55 p.m., just waiting for that timer to click down so that at midnight I can play it and then just stay up all night playing this fucking thing and experiencing this awesome game yet again. So Metal Gear Solid 3, or Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, absolutely my #1 most anticipated game of 2024. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my reviews of last year. I only got through a couple of them. It was kind of a lazy year, I gotta be honest with you. And then I also have my most recent live stream where I played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, so check that out, and I plan to do more of those. So like, share, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss all the future live streams and reviews. And as always, remember, the Game Chamber is Commander Shepard's favorite channel on the YouTubes.